You have been waiting for this, and the day has come. Today we will be amazed at what the flora of our planet is capable of. Many plants possess extraordinary abilities, and I'm going to tell you about the most incredible ones right now. Let's go. Let's start with something phenomenal. Even in a desert like the Sahara, it sometimes rains, and that's enough for the survival of the most incredible plant on Earth. From the sand rises a dried-up ball of branches. With a strong wind, it can travel, sometimes more than a kilometer a day. This plant has been dead for 100 years, but not all is lost for it, and it does not travel aimlessly, for the Anastatica is capable of resurrection. In these parts, it may rain only once or twice a year. Finding a puddle is almost impossible. However, if you search for decades, sooner or later, you'll get lucky. The dead branches absorb water, and a plant that has been dead for 100 years unfolds within minutes. Life always finds the most elaborate ways to survive in impossible conditions. But the Anastatica needs another miracle. The rain must hit its branches before they dry out and curl up again. And sometimes, this miracle happens. The raindrops cause the plant seeds to scatter in different directions. The soil gets soaked with moisture. Within a few hours, new sprouts appear. In just a couple of weeks, they will bloom and produce their own seeds. Then, before they can grow any further, the sun kills them. But their seeds continue living inside the plant, waiting for the return of the rains and to land in a puddle, even if it happens a century later. Soon, the dead plant detaches from its roots and becomes a tumbleweed. But do you know what's most amazing? There exists an identical plant, but it acts in the exact opposite way. It can also be dead for years, but for its resurrection, it waits not for water, but for fire. A real fire. This plant is found in southern Africa. Here lies the greatest diversity of flora anywhere in the world. About 9,000 plants, most of which need pollinators. They compete with each other for their help, showcasing extravagant forms and bright colors. Each promises sweet nectar as a reward, but here, there's one plant that avoids competing with the crowd, and the rising summer temperature provides it with everything it needs. The first fire, in 15 years, ignites, and the very plant that has been waiting for it gets its chance. A huge area burns to ashes. The flame devours everything in its path. The area fills with clouds of smoke. Almost all plants are destroyed, turned to ash. From the smoke of smoldering coals, it may seem that no plant survived this hell, but just 4 days after the fire lilium rises from the ashes. It lay underground for 15 years, but now, awakened by smoke, it begins to come to life. Its bloom is small and unassuming, but it doesn't need more, because all the competitors are dead. In this charred area, pollinators can see these tiny red beacons from a great distance. Now they are the only source of nectar nearby, and the more guests the flowers attract, the greater their chance of pollination. A few months later, the entire landscape comes alive again, and with the return of competition, the fire lilies wither once more. Now they will return underground and remain there in bulb form until another fire awakens them in a couple of decades. You all know about the Venus flytrap. Many mistakenly believe it is the fastest carnivorous plant, as the speed with which its trap snaps shut is truly astonishing, leaving most insects unable to react. However, there is another carnivorous plant that is much faster than the Venus flytrap, and now you will see something incredible that stretches the imagination. Before you lies eastern Venezuela. The rains here are so intense that soil cannot accumulate on the high rocky peaks, forcing the plants living here to seek another source of nutrients. These are bromeliads. Their leaves form funnels and collect rainwater, which accumulates in the center. One might wonder why a plant would store water when there's already an abundance of it. But you will understand now. These small ponds inside the bromeliad are colonized by a wide variety of creatures, including mosquito larvae and other small animals. They live their lives here and inevitably die, and their bodies after death provide part of the plant's nutrient needs. This is a good cooperation where both parties can thrive. But there is one big but. There exists a predatory plant thief that takes advantage of this situation. And here, it slowly and stealthily creeps up to execute its cunning plan. This is a true robber from the world of plants. This scout stem belongs to a plant called the bladderwort. It too wants to eat living creatures. It too needs nutrients. And a bromeliad pool full of small creatures is a great place to find them. The robber plunges its stem into someone else's pool and begins to transform, turning into a hunter. The plant grows trap bladders and removes excess water from them, creating a partial vacuum. Each bladder has a hatch covered with sensitive hairs. Now, all the bladderwort has to do is wait for the right moment. Just one touch is enough for the victim's fate to be sealed. By slowing down the playback by 240 times, we can see how the bladderwort acts. At the slightest touch, the valve opens inward, and under the influence of the vacuum, the prey is instantly sucked into the bladder. This all happens in less than a millisecond. The bladderwort rightfully holds the title of the fastest killer in the plant world. After feeding, the bladderwort accumulates enough energy to grow another tendril, to find another bromeliad pool and wreak havoc, robbing the unfortunate plant. In the heart of Hong Kong, strangler fig seeds that landed on stone walls generations ago have spread their flexible, branching roots far and wide. They can become so securely attached that they become part of the city's architecture. This might be the perfect weed, but there are places where people have figured out how to use the extraordinary abilities of fig trees for incredible purposes. What you are about to see will astound your imagination. In Meghalaya, in northeastern India, the highland plateau is cut by dizzyingly steep valleys. Here lives the Khasi people who have learned to use the amazing properties of fig trees to live in this challenging landscape. As in Hong Kong, numerous tree roots firmly anchor it, in this case to the mountainside. These roots can extend by 2.5 centimeters per day. They are exceptionally strong, flexible, and can develop in various shapes. The Khasi have decided to use them as ladders, but the monsoon season brings almost insurmountable challenges for the Khasi people. This is the wettest place on Earth. Nearly 30 centimeters of rain falls in a day. The rivers become deadly torrents dividing the community. At this moment, the relationship between the fig trees and the Khasi becomes most important. They deliberately plant fig trees near rivers. When they grow enough to form many hanging roots, the Khasi begin working on them. Young roots are better suited for starting the project. These roots are numerous, they are very flexible. A man threads the roots into bamboo tubes directed to the other side of the river. Then the tree is left to do its work. The roots grow inside the bamboo tube. These strands merge as they grow, sharing nutrients and resources, becoming stronger than any single root. It takes years, and over time the roots become a living bridge. Unlike all wooden and any other bridges in the world, these bridges become stronger and stronger every year, not the other way around, because the roots continue to grow. The Khasi people have built many living bridges here. These are some of the most incredible structures in the world, belonging in fantasy films, not the real world. It's amazing that anyone even thought of this. The living root bridges are a real lifeline for the Khasi people. Their importance cannot be overstated. Thanks to them, the Khasi can thrive in such a challenging landscape. The eastern coast of South Africa. The summer here is famous for its extreme temperatures, yet it is here, in the Cape Province, that one of the most incredible plants in the world grows, the Ceratocarium argenteum. It is an example of extremely rare mimicry among plants for the purpose of seed dispersal. It is an incredible liar and deceiver. You will understand now. The plant needs to hide its seeds underground before it becomes too hot. To achieve this, it begins to lie and deceive. And here are those it plans to deceive: dung beetles. They love the dung of various animals like antelopes. If a pile of dung appears somewhere, the beetles are instantly there. They quickly deal with this bounty, creating dung balls and rolling them to their secret place so they can eat them later. Although at this time of year, dung beetles bury dung balls to lay eggs in them. The fresher the dung, the better. Antelope dung is even more appealing to the beetles. It often comes in convenient pellet form and can be rolled right away. The long, thin stems of the Ceratocarium take advantage of this by dropping their seeds. The fact is, they are of the same size, shape, and surprisingly, even smell like antelope dung. The seeds release many volatile chemical compounds, characteristic of herbivore excrement. The dung beetles are convinced this is dung, but the plant is fooling them. These insects always bury dung balls at a consistent depth, which is perfect for the Ceratocarium seeds. This is not a symbiosis. The beetles gain nothing in return for their efforts. All the benefit is derived by the plant deceiving the beetles. The chemical similarity of the seed's smell to antelope dung is in no way related to antelopes feeding on this type of plant. No, it formed during the evolution of the Ceratocarium, aimed at attracting dung beetles. As a result, the unfortunate insects return again and again for these seeds, thinking they are food. Thanks to this mimicry, Ceratocarium seeds are rolled by beetles over long distances, and the beetles even plant them by burying them in the ground, thus aiding in the plant's dispersal. Brilliant! The poor beetle thinks it has made good provisions, but disappointment awaits it. Some plants offer animals nectar or fruits as a reward for services such as pollination or seed dispersal, but there are those who play dirty, even dirtier than the Ceratocarium. This is the Persunia tree. It grows on tropical islands in the Indo-Pacific region. These trees provide rest and nesting sites for weary seabirds, but these birds should be wary of their landlord. This is a very treacherous plant. Persunia has sticky seeds that adhere to birds and glue their feathers together, preventing them from taking flight. The idea is that the bird will fly to another island with the tree's seeds on board, thus expanding the plant's habitat. However, many birds end up paralyzed by the sticky seeds. They can no longer fly and can only walk, picking up more and more new seeds. Need I say that this doesn't end well? Many birds lose this battle here, littering the forests with their corpses. And although the seeds stuck to them did not reach a new home, at least they will begin to grow in fertilized soil. Plants employ a variety of techniques to disperse their seeds as widely as possible. One of the most remarkable is related to the cucumber, known as the exploding cucumber or ecballium. Pressure has been building in its pods over the past weeks, making them as taut as a well-inflated bicycle tire. Now they require just a slight touch. A mere contact or a gust of wind triggers the event. The further the plant launches its seeds, the better. If a seedling grows too close to its ancestor, they will have to compete for nutrients and light. Similarly, but with a slightly different mechanism, the pods of the Himalayan balsam act like time bombs. As they dry, they begin to tension along precisely aligned lines of structural weakness, requiring only the lightest disturbance, even a raindrop, to burst spectacularly. In a desolate world, water thieves take on various forms to exploit the slightest breach in the defenses of plants from which water can be extracted. One of the strangest journeys occurs with the fruit-eating mockingbird. This involves the seeds of Tristerix. Their target is the water inside the hedgehog cactus. Clinging to the spines, the seeds begin to sprout. Each develops a long tendril to attempt to reach the cactus's skin. For most, the plant is too large, and they perish without reaching anywhere. However, this one got lucky. The surface of the cactus was within reach. It attaches with a special sucker and waits for darkness to fall. At night, cacti open their spores to breathe. Oxygen exits, carbon dioxide enters, along with Tristerix. Once inside, its tissues spread throughout the cactus's body, feeding on its valuable water reserves. Then, after a year, it breaks through the cactus's skin and begins to bloom. Hummingbirds flock to the nectar, pollinating the flowers in the process. The cactus looks very beautiful if one ignores the fact that it is covered with a parasite rather than its own flowers. After pollination, to complete the cycle, Tristerix produces hundreds of attractive white seeds that lure birds. They will eat them and then transfer them to another cactus, and everything will repeat again. Perhaps the most complex pollination method belongs to a common forest plant, the Arum maculatum. It has a very strange-looking inflorescence with a purple spike called a spadix. Towards evening, the spadix heats up until it becomes 20 degrees warmer than the surrounding environment and emits a foul odor. Tiny flies in search of decay where they lay their eggs are drawn by the alluring stench, but the inner side of the leaf surrounding the spadix is very slippery. The flies fall into a trap, into the bulb at the base of the plant. The female flowers, which need to be pollinated, are located at the bottom of this bulb. Above them are the male flowers with pollen. At the top are needle-like, slippery, downward-hanging hairs. These hairs serve as a barrier for the trapped flies, keeping them there all night. The imprisoned flies stick to the sticky female zones of the flower, giving away all the pollen they took from the arum. Then the flies eat the dried sweet secretions and try to escape, but the plant does not release them yet. The male flowers mature, and their pollen is released, covering the flies. After this, the prison bars wilt, and the flies can finally fly away, only to get caught in another such trap. The point is, for the plant's pollination to be successful, the fly must escape captivity twice, the first time to collect the pollen, and the second time to deliver the pollen to other arum inflorescences. This is wild oat from Israel. At the top of each seed are two long bristles called awns, and when the seed hits the ground, these awns begin to do something extraordinary. The seed must find the perfect spot for growth, and to do that, it needs to search, and to search, it needs to move. Essentially, this is what these seeds do. They walk with the help of their awns. Thus, the seed travels across the ground for days, until it eventually finds a stone to hide under or a crack to burrow into. How is this possible? What's their secret? It's all about using temperature fluctuations. The awns twist as they dry during the day, and when they get wet, they untwist. Tiny hairs cling to the surface, causing the seed to move forward. Well, since we're talking about moving plants, it's impossible not to mention the famous Mexican jumping beans. They grow in a small area of mountainous, cool terrain, and unlike other beans in the world, they can move. Using jumps and rolls, they manage to gradually cover distances. In fact, they are not beans. They are simply called that. Essentially, they are just seeds of a tree. Some call them jumper seeds or simply jumpers. These tree seeds can jump like this for 6 to 8 months. Moreover, they jump purposefully and can even climb uphill. These jumps are made to escape the heat to a cooler place like under grass or a stone, and this is easily proven. If you place them on a platform platform where one side is heated with a lamp and the other is cooled, over time all the beans will move to the cooler side. No matter how many times you conduct this experiment, the result will always be the same. Now the question is, how do these beans manage to jump? They don't have any awns or anything that would allow them to move. So how do they manage to do this? Perhaps you have already guessed. Inside them live parasites. These are the larvae of the leaf moth, and they cannot stand the heat. The larva inside begins to move, pulling on threads that cause the seed to roll or jump. The caterpillars are very afraid of overheating as it leads to their dehydration and can kill them. Jumping beans have become so popular with people that they are sold just like that, right with the caterpillars inside. Without them, they are of little interest to anyone. In the valleys of Florida, every spring, the sand milkweed blooms, and its blossoming coincides precisely with the arrival of migrating monarch butterflies from Mexico. However, the butterflies do not need the milkweeds to pollinate their flowers. Instead of collecting pollen, female monarchs lay their eggs on the leaves, from which larvae hatch and devour the plant. Interestingly, this is precisely what the plant needs. Although the butterfly lands on it just to lay eggs, it still pollinates the flower, and from there, the plant deals with the butterfly's offspring in its own cunning way. As the butterfly larvae begin to hatch, anticipating feasting on the leaves, the plant has entirely different plans. Once a caterpillar bites into the capillaries, it is met with a sticky, viscous substance. Consequently, the unfortunate creature either gets its legs stuck or eventually drowns. The plant's defense is so effective that only 1/3 of the caterpillars manage to survive their first day on it. Nonetheless, a small percentage survive and grow big and strong. They find a vulnerable spot. Carefully chewing through the main stem, the caterpillars release liquid, reducing its reserves, leaving the milkweed defenseless, allowing the caterpillar to eat it freely. However, the plant will be fine, as a small percentage of surviving caterpillars cannot cause it significant harm. It was designed for this. Therefore, with the arrival of a new season, the plant once again awaits the butterflies to land on it, lay eggs, and simultaneously pollinate the flowers. In the movie Avatar, if you recall, there were plants that would instantly retract upon being touched. Surprisingly, there is something similar in our real world. This is the Mimosa pudica, plant that reacts extremely quickly to being touched, creating the impression that you are in front of some kind of animal. This rapid leaf-folding reaction occurs because there are water membranes at the base of the leaf stalks and receptors sensitive to pressure on the leaves themselves. When touched, the liquid rushes to the point of contact, and under this weight, the leaf folds. This allows the plant to defend itself against various pests. In one study, it was found that the sensitive mimosa has the ability to learn and remember the characteristics of contacts, and if they do not pose a threat, the plant will not expend energy folding its leaves. Polar days in the tundra last long, but due to the short summer, many plants require 2 years to produce seeds. One of the champions against the harsh climate is the humble common butterwort. It looks harmless, but is a cunning killer. The leaves of the butterwort are covered with tiny, sticky droplets adapted for catching insects. When a victim is caught, the carnivorous plant begins to slowly absorb its prey using glands that generate enzymes that aid in digestion. Butterworts come in different species, and insects are better off not touching any of them. In lands with scarce nutrient supplies, the ability to utilize an additional source of nitrogen, insects, provides an important advantage. Let's transport ourselves to South America. This is the Pantanal, the largest inland water world. For several months of the year, it creates ideal conditions for aquatic plants. They all compete to occupy space on the surface to receive more sunlight, the source of life. Everyone tries to grow as quickly as possible before their competitors do, and each day the struggle for a place under the sun becomes more intense. But while everyone is battling for rays, a monster grows from the depths, soon to destroy them all. This is a true plant world monster, merciless and well-armed. It clears space with one of its buds like a mace, and now it can begin to unfold. This is the leaf of the giant water lily, the Victoria amazonica. The leaf expands more than 20 centimeters a day and will eventually reach over 2 meters in width. Huge leaves are supported by air-filled ribs and protected by 2-centimeter-long spines, guarding it against herbivorous fish. The leaves float on water, covered with small drain holes to ensure that rainwater doesn't sink the plant. Over several months, the lily will produce about 40 such giant leaves. With each leaf unfolding on the surface, less light is is left for other plants. The lily pushes competitors aside, crushing or piercing many of them. It's like a massacre where none of the lily's competitors survive. Eventually, the enormous leaves press their edges so tightly that they completely cut off light for the plants below. The battle is over, an unequivocal victory. The lily's leaves are so large and sturdy on the water that a person can stand on them with their full weight. Or maybe not. Well, actually, they can, but only if the weight is distributed correctly. The plant can bear up to 50 kilograms due to its unusually large hollow ribs, and one can stand on it if a disc is placed so that the weight is distributed across the plant, allowing a person to stand successfully, which many manage to do. Don't ask why people do this. That's all. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.